Hey guys, what's up? It's 420, and what does the average stoner do on 420? Let's take a look. See my shirt? As like my test in screen printing. I'm going to try to come out with a clothing line. It's made by stoners for stoners. Since I'm the average stoner, I'm just going to call it stoner wear. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Got a big day ahead of us. So, gets big with water. I only try to put about a gallon of water in there because you just do a few shirts at a time and you save the soda ash, as you can end up doing a lot of soda ash if you're only doing 5-6 shirts or so. That stuff can get expensive. Really, when you work with a soda ash, you kind of want to wear gloves. Now, this is the photo emulsion that we use for the screen printing. The way that the photo emulsion works is whenever it's exposed to light, it sets. So the whole idea is to paint the whole screen all the way across, and then you put your image on it. And when you set it under the light, it burns the picture into it where the image is not over. So, see, this is the dehumidifier. It will help dry out the whole thing on that screen. That emulsion, if you just let it set overnight, it'll dry pretty good. But the biggest and hardest part about doing the emulsion is not getting too much on the screen. Now, this tie-dyeing, whenever I do tie-dyeing, sometimes it's a hit and a miss. I mean, the whole family will do shirts sometimes, just pull out the colors, the inks and the bottles and all that, and we'll go through and we'll all make shirts. And I like 5 or 6 shirts, it will be a hit and a miss. Like 2 of them will be good. I'm not saying we all suck at making shirts, but I'm saying that the tie-dyeing is kind of an art. If you know what colors react with what colors and all that, then you can get pretty good at this. But we'll see how we do on this. Now, that microwave dish, the reason I'm using that is because it holds down the fabric as it pulls in the fabric. It has a hole in the center that you can grip the fabric on. And a lot of people use what do you call them things? Those things they use for roach clips or whatever, forceps or whatever. But no matter what you use, if you grip that fabric too tight and you let your gripping device be what turns the fabric, you can definitely tear a little hole in the center where you were gripping the fabric at. Some people use them little forceps and they coat the end of them with like shrink wrap or maybe tape up the end or something. We tried to tape them up. That didn't really work out too well. And the more you can get it to pull out and spin, the tighter your spin's going to be on this. And after you get it all spun up, then pretty much all you do is get some rubber bands and go onto it. Now, the rubber bands, what the idea of the ink is to do is to go where the pressure is not. So the tighter you have the rubber bands, the less dye that will be able to seep into the fabric that's underneath that rubber band. So if you get the rubber bands too tight, you'll get dye bleed under the band lines. And if you get them too loose, when you go moving around your shirt or whatever, the fabric starts messing all up and coming unraveled. So the whole idea is to get a whole spin. You know, nowadays they got a lot of shirts that are just mass produced as tie-dye. But I'll tell you what, to me, nothing beats a good old-fashioned tie-dye. Now with our inks on this, or our dyes, these things have been sitting for like 6 months. Just like on every adventure, you get all the stuff to do it, you do it for a little while, and the craze goes away. Well, Ben, it was 420 and all, making these shirts. I thought I'd break it back out. Oh, those little rubber things on top of the bottles, I don't use those, because you can, while you're getting the dye out of the jar, you can get the little caps and get the tops of the bottles and all that all saturated in dye. And if you have that little plug thing on it, if it gets in the dye, that thing is just up there bouncing around. So it drips the dye onto your fabric. And if you've ever tie-dyed, you get the wrong color on the wrong color, boy, you pretty much just messed up the whole thing. Not really sucks, but it's alright. Yeah, isn't it? It's so pretty when you actually start putting the dye on. Pretty soothing. Now, it does take longer to do a lot of this than this video is showing, because I did go through and clip out a good portion of this. This was like a 2-hour video, and I took out all of the stuff that was pretty much related to the 420 and smoking on the other video and put it on here. And now this one's just kind of like related to tie-dyeing. So, yeah. You just apply your dye. And you know the way I do it, whenever I suck up the ink into the bottles, or the dye into the bottles, I'll put it down in the jar and make sure that it's squeezed, and then when I let go of it, it sucks the dye up. So therefore, it's easier to fill it and faster if you have just a jar there, and you can take the bottle and fill it on the go real quick. Make sure when you switch shirts after doing dye to clean your gloves. Just want to point that out, because boy, these shirts, these white shirts, one little smudge can ruin your shirt too. You see what I was doing with this shirt here is it's inside out to begin with. All these shirts, you always do it inside out, because sometimes you might get like a little smidgen of dye there that you don't want, or you might damage the fabric a little bit when you're doing this. So if you do it inside out, sometimes that hides it. But whenever I did this one, you just take it and you hold it up, and you reach your arm from one arm through that one all the way to the other one, and then you grab it and then you pull it back through, and what it does is it makes a duplicate front and back. So now you see how I help it around. If you just sit there and crank on them vice grips, you're definitely going to put a hole in that fabric, and then you wouldn't be having a very good time. So after you get moving so much and the spiral gets so tight, it's best to go ahead and just do it like this anyway. and help it around, because you just don't want to be wearing on that fabric. You don't want to be doing that, man. That's just not any good. Then hopefully after you get all done spiraling it, rubber banding it, whenever you set the dye and pull it out of the dryer, it turns out pretty nice. But you'll see what percentage of these shirts people would want to keep and what percentage people would want to throw away. So down in the comments, you can leave a comment if any of them would be worth keeping to you. That's the only way to do it, because I'm biased. I made them. I like them all. But after these shirts get done, you let me know which you like the best. Just make sure you don't got them bands too tight. And you see how I kind of like slide it along the table to get it under it? That helps quite a bit when you do it that way, instead of trying to pick up the fabric and put it through it. It's a pain in the butt to do it that way. This is that Percussion, I don't know, the dye. I will have a link to the stuff I used for the materials, like the dye, into the description. So even if the shirts you think came out look sucky, don't blame the dye, blame the maker, because I'm not really good at this. I'm not a professional. I'm just making some shirts, man. And also the dyes, if you haven't noticed, I thought this was black. And I put more black into it. This stuff has been sitting around for quite a while. So it's kind of a test to see how long the dye holds up. I gotta go. 420, there's gotta be some good specials. Let's go ahead and put those in there to soak while I'm gone. That's that soda ash. There's that one. I divided up in 4s and did both sides. There's that one. I did one side black and one side red. This one here, what I'll try to do, attempt on it, is to go ahead and do a pleat. When I say pleat, that means kind of fan the shirt down. Now, most times when you do a pleat, you do about 1 inch folds. And also with that, you do it vertically usually. I don't know why I decided to do it horizontally. But whenever you do it horizontally, you just have a shirt that has like a grid on it. That isn't no fun. But it's all in figuring out how to do it and the best way to accomplish that perfect tie-dye design that you like so much. I use the ruler to kind of give it a hard surface to do it. If you really want to go all out on your plates, you can use an iron as well. Just take the ruler and put it inside the shirt, and each fold you would take the iron and iron it a little bit to get all the little wrinkles out of each little plate. After you get it all folded up, you just come and you roll it up like a big doobie. Scooby-Dooby-Doo! And after you get done rolling it up, you put your rubber bands on it. Then, of course, now you go ahead and put on your dies. I do a red circle, a little orange dot in the middle. Now just do the outside with complete black. This one here, instead of putting it in the bag, I put it on a rack to let it set. Now on these spiral ones, remember, you don't want to get the vice grips too tight, and you don't want to make the vice grips try to spin the whole shirt, as the shirt should be damp whenever you twist it up and do your bandings. If your shirt is not damp enough, what happens with the ink and the dye is it'll saturate past all the places you put it. See, the dry fabric absorbs more ink, and the wet fabric will stay more in your lines and keep your design. So you do want a little bit of dampness to your clothing as you tie-dye it. Now with these spiral shirts, the more you can twist it, the more you can keep going round and round, the tighter your plates will be. And you put your rubber bands on it, and boom, there you go. Another one ready for the dye. This one here is just going to be a red and blue. We've always had pretty good luck with the red and blue colors. So, why not do one for this, right? You can do the other side. And then you flip it over, of course. Make sure you get that good saturation on the outside of the shirts even. Then we move over to the screen printing part. Get your screens ready. You can use a transparent film, but I kind of like using the baby oil because once you put it on the screen, it kind of sticks to it. So therefore, you don't have to worry about that. Put it on there backwards. Then after you get your picture put on there, always make sure you put it backwards because this is the bottom side of your screen print, of course. I put it in my grow tent. This light ought to be good enough to cook in any kind of design, to be honest with you. And I put it in there for about 5 minutes. And whenever I put it under the light, I set it on something that holds up the screen, the fabric part of the screen, and put the glass over the top of it so it has contact on both sides of the print screen. That way, the light doesn't bleed under any of the lines, and you get a nice, crisp, clean outline on all your different design. Then you spray it out. A good practice is to wet down both sides of the screen before you start rinsing, and then just go ahead and rinse it the rest of the way out. If you don't have it burned on good enough, your design, some of it may wash out. If you left it under the light too long, it's super, super hard to wash out. In some cases, you can't even wash it out. So make sure you don't leave it too long. That is for sure. Then whenever I get ready to rinse them out, since I'm not wanting to let them sit overnight, I'm gonna want to do this in a couple hours. I microwave each shirt for about 2 minutes. That sets the ink inside the shirt.
You clean out a DIY dye shirt, a tie-dye shirt. You get all these rings out, and then you wash it with water and squeeze really hard. You keep squeezing until you get no more dye out. And then you look at your creation after you're done, and then you're like, what the hell did I do with this? Because then I forgot one of the other rubber bands. I forgot to get that section. So I get tie-dye all over my skin. And it messes with your skin. It's like a tattoo. I was going for the Batman look, but I used orange, blue, and green. Alright guys, we're almost done. Almost done with this. Now we gotta get your plate. Use that as an advantage, and you soak, get all that, and you look at it. Like, why does it look like crap? This is me after eating Taco Bell. Then you get your plate and you lift it up, and then you go for seconds. The second crap. It just keeps coming out.
Have you figured out why I put the plate under yet?
No.
So you can tell if it's all rinsed out. It's a black sink. You can't see any color.
Well, it still keeps coming out of my butthole. So you gotta wash it more. Until it's bloody.
Now back to narrating it myself again. But you go through and you just rinse them all out. Make sure that you set the dye with at least letting it set overnight, or going ahead and microwaving each shirt. Or if you really want to be good at it, go ahead and let it sit overnight and then microwave. Yeah, that'll really get it in there. It does take a while to rinse them out. Just keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. If you hear the cars driving by in the background, I apologize. Like I said before, I narrate these things in the morning on my morning walks. And there just so happens to be people that like to get up and drive around in the morning. So, you'll hear them. There's that red and blue one. I hate to say it, but the green one and the red and blue one are my favorites this around. Most of the times when you do tie-dye, you have a couple that suck and a couple that rock. But that's okay. This is just for fun, right? It's always just for fun. I ain't making no money at this. This is just your way around, man. And after I get a quick rinse on that, I'll go ahead and shove them over in the dryer. Give them a quick dry too. That way we can go ahead and move on to the screen printing side of things. You don't need to do any special drying. They just need to be dry. Here they are. This is the third one. The one that I did the pleat, I told you it was going to have a grid-like pattern. And this is the first one I did with the green, orange, blue. I think it turned out pretty good. One of my favorites. And this is the fourth one. Just the red and blue design. This is also my other favorite one. And this is the second one I did. We spiraled up, and then just did one side red and one side black on this one. Now let's move to the screen printing side. Whenever I do my screen printing, I make sure I have a board inside the shirt. Sometimes the ink does like to go ahead and seep through the fabric, and if you don't have something in between the fabrics, it can kind of glue your shirts together. I've had that happen before. And also with the board underneath it, it gives you a hard surface to be able to do your dyeing or your inking like that. Now, if you notice, when I first put down the ink on the screen, I lifted it up before I did my first squeege pass through. They call that loading the screen. You lift it up, load the screen, put the screen down, and squeege some more, and it sets it in. And a lot of shirt makers will have a heat press where they just put the shirt under it to set the ink into the fabric then. But I'm too cheap for that shit, so I'll just go ahead and iron it after it's done. You pull out the heat gun, make sure the ink is dry enough to set in, and then I do the iron, so it sets it in even better. Then after you're all done, you got the ink all dried up and set in, you throw them in the dryer. That sets the ink even more. Do not wash them with the ink in the first time. Make sure you set the ink, because the ink will just wash out if you do not have the ink set well enough. And to be honest with you, a heat press may be better, because when I washed these shirts, a couple of the designs did wash out quite a bit. So, how you like my little Deadpool ganja shirt? I love that design. It was pretty cool. Looked like he's ready to eat some bud, man. Just iron it to make sure all the little wrinkles are out, so you don't have any little bumps in your design when you do your screen printing. Make sure you get it set up, centered up properly when you put on your screens as well. You don't want to get it on there all crooked, and then you got to hurry up and wash it before any of the ink sets. But see how I lift it up, squeege down, get the screen good and loaded, set it down, squeege back, press the ink into the fabric. I say that you should only go over it like once or twice like that. And a lot of people actually recommend taping the sides of your screen so the ink don't get down through the sides of the design. But ain't nobody got time for that over here. I gotta get this stuff done. Don't ask me why. It's just a personal thing I gotta do. And make sure you flip it over. See, I like to put the patches on my shirt too. I don't really know if the idea of stoner wear would ever catch on. Might leave a comment in the description if you would be interested in clothing that signifies that you are a stoner. See, my idea behind stoner wear is I like to smoke weed. And every once in a while, I'll fumble across somebody that don't like pot smoker. Well, instead of wasting my time talking to these fools, if you have a shirt that says that you are a pothead, maybe they just won't ever talk to you in the first place, right? So, that's the idea behind stoner wear. Let people know before you even waste your time with them that you like to smoke some ganj. Maybe you'll make some new friends just by wearing a shirt. maybe your friends will be like, oh, well, damn, I like that shirt too. It's 420 somewhere, for sure. See the little badge at the top of the badge. It says, do you even smoke? And at the bottom it says the average stoner. I have a big badge that I've put on a few shirts in the past that says, do you even smoke? And that's just all the front badge would say. And then on the back would be the big marijuana emblem where it says the average stoner. And then at the bottom it'll say stonerwear. Now you see this one here, I tried to do green. Well, for the 420 design, I thought, hell, let's make this a little Deadpool green. Well, if you don't have the white highlights and the black outlines, the green, you really can't see it too well. So I don't really recommend doing the color designs on a tie-dye shirt unless you're doing multiple colors to make it stand out and be the catch of the eye. Doing multiple colors, I'm not really set up for that though. This is kind of just a little pastime hobby. I thought about going into doing the screen printing stuff, but you know, then I'd have to learn how to take a picture and separate colors and get one of the machines or build a machine that holds multiple screens. You can put your shirt on, and then it has like a screen revolver on the top of it for each different color design. See, when you have a screen printed shirt, each different color on that screen printed shirt was a different screen. Now there are emulsion printers, which I think the filming of this video, cheapest one I found is probably about $1,000 to $2,000. I think they may have some cheaper designs in $600 range, but nothing beats a little $10 screen and some fabric and then some emulsion. And you know, a lot of the stuff that you use when you tie-dye and screen print is cross-usable with grow and herb. Because you have your drying screens, which I use while I'm drying herb to dry my buds after I clip them and everything. Those screens are best because they can let the air circulate top and bottom of the design. So these print screens are not just for print screening. They're also to be able to dry my bud. And that light that I grow my buds with, it is also good for setting in the screen print design on your screens. The tint's good for drying out your stuff if you need it. So, I mean, no wonder why hippies tie-dye and screen print. They get all the stuff they need with their growing tent and growing supplies. Whoever knew? Man. That's why you see all kinds of colorful rainbows and stuff on their shirts. And plus, it's pretty cool. It's kind of exciting to band up a shirt and then put you some dye on that biatch. Now, screen printing is just a little bonus that I learned to do. Because you can use screen printing for anything. Because more or less, all you're doing with a screen printing screen is making a design that ink will flow through. Now, something about the screen printing, it does not have to be ink. It can be paint. It can be ink. It could be, I don't know how you'd ever use it. It could be food coloring. The idea is it makes a design that puts in perfect lettering and all that without no problems. So screen printing was definitely something I wanted to learn for the future. I will use screen printing to sell my house, to trade off stuff, and all that different stuff. Then we got our reveal here. This is that second shirt where we had the red front, black back. This is shirt number 4, the red and blue design. See the green? It didn't set up very well. That's what I was saying. Now if it had a white background, I bet that would pop like a biatch. And there's my first one, the green design. I think this one turned out best overall due to the screen print logo. Now this one actually has the best logo, the best screen printing logo, being legible, that is. But
thanks
that
for
first
watching.
one,
If you like the video and want to follow my process, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey man, while you're at it, check out my other YouTube channels. The Stay Home Dad, the Back End Handyman, the Dorcher Family, and the Average Stoner. Just a little bit of what I do from day to day as a stay-home dad.